What did a teacher do that made you automatically gain respect for them? I went to a small charter school for middle school. Our English/literature teacher was brand new to teaching. If I remember correctly, she was only 22, which seemed old at the time. She always did her best to be so cheerful and make learning fun. But the thing that truly solidified her spot as my favorite teacher was that for every student's birthday she would give you a personalized mini notebook. It was just a simple small composition notebook, but she had filled the first couple pages telling me how much she loved having me as a student, how far she knew I would go, and other affirmations. It seems small, but as a 13-year-old who had a crappy home life, it made all the difference in how I acted the rest of the year. I've never wanted to do something for students so much. I had a physical education teacher who organized basketball, volleyball, handball and football tournaments, organized Olympic games for the local kids, and taught us dancing on weekends, on his own, just for us kids, because we lived in a remote place without many activities and things going on. He was more than a simple teacher. I feel like this is the main reason that a lot of teachers in rural areas don't get credit for the amount of work they do outside of the classroom. Up here in Montana, many teachers have been known to actively go out of their way to help the kids, for the kids' benefit, whether it be coaching, tutoring, helping out in general, etc. I know many teachers everywhere do this. But after moving up here, living up here 10 plus years, and seeing how much a rural community comes together to showcase the teachers, it made me gain a better appreciation overall. I sincerely wish teachers get more credit, because there are some out there that just make that impact on someone, and I enjoy reading about it. It makes me appreciate several of my past teachers from high school and college immensely more than I once did. When I was in the first grade, my mother gave me one of many really awful haircuts. The first day back at school afterward, the kids picked on me horribly, so much that I ran out and hid. The principal found me, and we went back to the classroom, and he asked me to wait outside for a minute while he talked to the class. He then walked me to his office and bought me a Coke. The next day, first thing in the morning, we had an assembly with the entire school, and he walked up on stage with his head shaved completely bald and talked about bullying and the like. Some 20 years down the road he had retired, and I ran into him at the local college, shook his hand and said, "You probably don't remember me, but, apostrophe, yes I do." He interrupted and said my name and the event. The man was and is a hero in my eyes. Mad respect to him. When I was a kid, we had to purchase these red punch cards to get lunch at school. Unfortunately, we didn't have that much money, so there were times where my punch card would run out and I wasn't able to eat for a while until we got enough money to repurchase another one. Why nobody in my family applied for assistance was beyond me. I had one teacher who noticed I wasn't eating every day, and she would bring an extra sandwich and offer it to me whenever she saw that. I really didn't understand how kind that was when I was a kid, but obviously as an adult, that was such an amazing gesture of kindness. In middle school I went through something similar. Would just go to my social studies CL, but instead of the cafeteria for lunch BC I never had food. Teacher started leaving a few dollars on my desk and would let me get lunch and eat with her. I ate with her most of my 8th grade year, and I'd always bring her money that I got, like for day/holiday, to try to pay her back. She'd just put it in her drawer and give it back to me later. I remember that to this day, and I try to make sure I have change and one's on me at all times for any of my students who need it, as well as keeping my bottom drawer stocked with snacks. My students always know they can count on me for food if they are hungry. Crazy how good deeds P button to more good deeds. Thank you for helping your students. Not take my shit. I was a pretty decent writer in school, able to pop stuff out pretty quickly that was superficial but sounded good. The first time I had a teacher hand my work back pointing out that I managed to compellingly fail to say anything was sort of a slap in the face that I didn't realize I needed. Same here. I've been able to bullshit my way through most English classes, but I'll never forget the professor that told me she knew I could do better and give more than I was. I got that with a math teacher in grade 12. The teacher called for a parent-teacher meeting. So my parents were unimpressed with me, and from the teacher's email it sounded like I was close to failing the course. We go in. He spends 15 minutes talking about how I don't pay attention, talk with friends instead of doing work, etc. until my parents finally ask what my current grade is. 77%. 77%. My parents were confused and were basically like, then why are we here? And my teacher was trying to emphasize that I should have been getting 90% plus. As a teenager I really didn't care, but I see his point as I've gotten older. This will probably get lost, but I want to shout out this teacher of mine. She was our rap English language teacher for our senior year of high school. On one of the first days in her class, she explained how she went from being a kindergarten teacher to a high school senior teacher. She always saw off her cute and happy kindergarten kids. But as they grew up, and they came back to visit her, a lot of them came to her troubled and dissatisfied with their lives. It made her real emotional about how people had treated these kids she loved so much. How she couldn't afford to see kids so disconnected with life. And how she didn't want them to suffer as they headed out towards college and their adult lives. So she changed curriculums and started teaching seniors. If I remember right, it always came down to sending her kids off with a smile, prepping them for the real world. I respect the hell out of her, and she'll always be one of my favorites. Truly like a mother to all her students. I had a professor once state that she doesn't believe in trick questions. Students trick themselves up enough without the professor helping that along. She never did put trick questions. I'm epileptic and had a large set of seizures not long before finals in high school chemistry. My seizures tend to mess with my memory, and those multiple seizures had devastated my memory of everything I'd learned in CL but that semester. I was doing reasonably well in CL but absolutely bombed the test. After the failed test I ended up just shy of passing the CL but and he decided to give me a bonus question that passed me. I didn't expect that. But the empathy was nice to see from a teacher. Even still. Lines, the whole situation sucked. Edition. My math teacher told me I should have studied better. He then offered for me to retake the test, which seems reasonable enough, but there was no point as it was just all gone. Northeast. I've only had one, since that was worse than that. But fortunately I've got an understanding employer. It doesn't hurt that I've got a union rep as well. Lines. L. Junior year of high school. English class. We were discussing a story we had read. One student, let's call him Carl, made a point. The teacher was dismissive and basically said Cole was wrong. The next day, after we took our seats, the teacher said, "Before we begin, I was thinking about what Carl said yesterday. I was wrong to dismiss it so quickly. Let's take a look at that again." Apostrophe. He then went on to repeat Carl's point and initiate a conversation with the entire class. After the conversation, it became apparent Carl's point was indeed off base. But I was impressed the teacher publicly owned his mistake and went down the path he should have. A math teacher went to the hospital several times to visit a student who had been seriously injured in an accident. The teacher offered companionship, free tutoring, and genuine encouragement. Math teacher, I don't care if you have good grades or bad grades. If you work hard, I will work harder to make you pass. He worked hard for me, I passed. Told us a joke about his name before we could and allowed us to eat during his classes because kids your age can't help being hungry all the time. As long as we did it quietly. Great guy. His whole attitude made all of us actually pay attention and do our best. Instead of shouting at my loud CL but for not shutting up before the lesson began, my history teacher decided to quietly tell the story of a pink elephant that wanted to be an astronaut. After a few seconds, people started to shut up and listen about the pink elephant. When everyone was quiet and listening, he stopped mid-story. As much as it made me respect him. Why didn't you finish the story FFS? Exclamation mark. That cliffhanger! Exclamation mark. It was a professor, but she said she wasn't going to have a textbook for the class. Basically, she didn't respect the textbook representatives trying to take the farmer approach to force kids to buy an $170 access code. Instant respect. You just had to show up to the lectures and she teach you what you needed to know. I had a business studies teacher who used to be a mental health professional. so she knew the signs when my depression was particularly bad. For example, submitting work at 3 AM, and would always make sure I had eaten, and offered me coffee, and generally made her classroom a safe space for anyone. Sestine, if you're reading this, you're amazing! Exclamation mark. Oh shit. Turning in work at 3 AM is a sign of depression? Holy shit. I was depressed much earlier than I thought. Edit. Punctuation. IDK if it's a general symptom. But for me, I had very bad insomnia as a side effect of my depression. So that's why work was turned in at 3 AM. I moved out of home during high school. It was stressful, to say the least. I started to fall behind in assignments. I would be absent for days at a time. I missed tests, etc. I ended up explaining the bare minimum of my situation to my English teacher, and their response always stuck with me. Just do what you can. Apostrophe. It may not seem like much, but right then and there, for a 16-year-old kid who felt like simply living was a burden, it was everything. When I was 16, I was living with my mentally unstable father who was physically and verbally abusive. Long story short, school ended up finding out about my situation and I ended up having to see the counselor there. After a few sessions with her, she told me, "We are going to try our best to get you out of there, if that's what you want." She did, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I need to go back and find her. Just a simple message saying how much it meant to you will be so incredibly valuable to her. Go do it, buddy. You're guaranteed to cheer someone up. Treated kids with autism plus Asperger's like actual human beings. In my school, I was in a special needs unit for kids with Asperger's and autism called the CDU, Communication Disorder Unit. The kids in there ranged from having mild Asperger's to full-on severe autism, and as such most teachers treated everyone from there like they had severe mental health problems, just because they were labeled as having autism or Asperger's, even if it was very mild. But there was one support teacher in the CDU who was genuinely just a nice dude. Whether he was talking to kids who had severe autism or just some mild social anxiety, he wouldn't talk extra slowly, or call you bud, or pal at the end of a sentence. He would talk to everyone like they were real human beings. It might seem like a small thing, but when that's how pretty much all teachers talked to you and treated you in every CL, but it was very refreshing to talk to someone who would talk to you based on who you were as a person, rather than treating someone differently for being labeled as autistic. Thankfully, this program didn't exist at my school. Aspers had 504s and more severe cases had IEPs, and certain classes were done by special teachers or with an extra teacher. Nobody was made to feel stupid or less than other students. That teacher is the kind that all neurodivergent students love. My band director, he laughed with us. He talked to us like people instead of lowly teenage students. And he read to us The Power of Positive Thinking. He saw a need for it. Some of the kids were bored out of their skulls and thought it was stupid, but some of us listened. Personally, I love that he recognized a problem and took action. I've been out of high school for 30 years this year. I'm still in touch with him. He's the most influential person in my life that is not related to me, and it's because he chose to invest and do more than bare minimum as a teacher. It's really interesting how a teacher can be so influential for one student, while another student may hate them because they were bored out of their skulls. I always hope that a student can connect with at least one teacher during secondary school. So true. My best friend was in band with me then. She fell asleep while he was reading. She may or may not have had an eraser chucked at her. She deserved it. She quit band for our senior year so she could have fun. I stayed in band my senior year and actually took a second band class. I had more fun than she did. In my first year of high school, my CL but decided to play a simple prank on our English/SOS teacher by all laughing when he faced the board, and then stopping every time he turned around to face us. After a few minutes of this, he just left the classroom without a word. We all sat there, confused, until a few minutes later the assistant principal comes in and explains that we've really upset our teacher. He made us believe we'd seriously fucked up. Then our teacher walked in and pretty much went gotcha. That son of a bitch had our respect from then on. We did this with our physics teacher. We would agree on a keyword, and any time he said it we would clap or snap or something. He caught on pretty quick. This was about the same time That mosquito ringtone became popular. It is essentially just a 15 kHz tone, but older people lose the ability to hear it. Many of us would play it at different times to irritate this one student. The teacher, who could not hear it but understood what was happening, set up some kind of microphone array that would indicate the direction of the source of the sound. That prank ended pretty quickly. Got him. That's a good teacher. Did he teach you guys about what he built? That's cool. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.